Okay, today we are diving into something huge. A massive multi-billion-dollar, well, failure, frankly.
Yeah, it's pretty staggering when you look at the numbers.
Corporations are spending, what, over $54 billion every year globally on sales training?
54 billion. It's an enormous amount of money aimed at making salespeople better.
But here's the kicker, the paradox.
Uh-huh. Despite all that cash being thrown around, industry stats suggest like 9 out of 10 reps, they walk away from training feeling disappointed.
9 out of 10. So the investment is sky high, but the actual value perceived by the people getting trained is, well, rock bottom.
Exactly. And the core problem, which, the research really points to, is that the training is often badly designed, or maybe even more critically, it just isn't reinforced afterwards.
Right. So the learning evaporates. Our mission today is to cut through that waste. We're going to lay out the 4 essential phases: assessment and design, reinforcement, and evaluation. This is the framework, really, to make sure that training money actually translates into results you can measure.
Let's start at the beginning then. Phase 1, assessment. It sounds obvious, but before you spend anything, you absolutely have to diagnose the need.
And that need is maybe more critical now than ever.
I think so,
Yeah.
because selling has changed, right? We've moved, generally speaking, from simple product pushing to much more complex solution selling, building these long-term partnerships.
So how closely does this training need to align with, say, the overall company strategy? Are we talking minor adjustments or a whole new training plan if the strategy shifts?
Oh, it has to be tightly aligned. If the company decides, okay, we're going for aggressive growth, grabbing market share, then your sales team needs training on, competitive tactics, finding new territory.
Hunting skills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if the strategy is more about stability, holding on to the customers you have, then the training needs to completely pivot. It becomes all about service, retention, deepening those relationships. The training must serve the strategy.
Okay, strategy is set. What are the key questions, then, that sales leaders need to ask to really scope out the training properly? I think you mentioned 4.
Yeah, 4 key ones. First, what are the objectives? And importantly, objectives beyond just sell more stuff. Second, who actually needs to be trained? Third, what specific skills are missing? And fourth, how much training, how intensive does it need to be?
Let's dig into those objectives first. You suggested good training is almost like preventative medicine for the sales org.
That's a great way to put it. It really does go way beyond the next quarter's sales number. Good training helps lower turnover. Think about it. If people feel competent and equipped early on, they're less likely to fail and just quit.
Makes sense. Less churn.
Less churn, higher morale, because people feel invested and they have a sense of purpose. It also improves communication, customer relations, even basic things like self-management.
Okay, now the who. This was the part I found really interesting. Obviously, new hires need training, maybe 3 to 6 months to get up to speed.
Right, the basics.
But for experienced reps, the data suggests focusing the main effort on the middle 60%. Why is that? Why not the top stars?
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? You'd think train the best to be even better. But the reality is that's where you get the highest ROI.
How so?
Well, the top 20%, they're likely already performing near their peak. Training might give them a tiny bump, but not a huge one. The bottom 20%, well, honestly, they might be in the wrong role. Training can't always fix a fundamental mismatch.
Okay.
But that middle 60%, that's the largest group, and they usually have the most untapped potential. Small improvements there spread across that large group actually lift the entire company's performance significantly. You move the needle most with them.
Got it. Focus on the biggest potential for uplift. And it's not just the reps getting trained, is it?
No, absolutely not. Sales managers need continuous development too. Things like leadership skills, strategic thinking. Gentech, for example, has a specific program for this.
And sometimes even customers.
Yes. In certain fields, like complex medical devices, a supplier might require physicians to complete training before they can even use the product. It's partly about effectiveness, but also, frankly, about reducing liability.
Okay, so to wrap up assessment, we need specifics, not just improve prospecting, but how. How do managers pinpoint that exact need?
One really powerful technique is called difficulty analysis. I kind of think of it as doing an autopsy on lost deals.
An autopsy,
Yep.
okay.
You look at deals that went south, maybe customer complaints or just patterns of low sales volume. You dig in to find the root cause. Did the rep fail because they couldn't close? Or did they fail way earlier because they were chasing lousy prospects from the start?
So the analysis tells you where in the process the breakdown happened.
Precisely. If the autopsy shows they're picking bad prospects, then the training needs to focus specifically on improving prospecting methods, not on generic closing techniques they might already be good at.
Okay, makes perfect sense. Diagnose thoroughly before prescribing the fix. Which brings us neatly to phase 2, program design. Logistics, content. How do we build the actual training? Let's start with who does the training.
Right, the trainer. You've basically got 3 main options, and each has its pros and cons. First up, line personnel. That means managers, maybe senior reps.
The advantage there is obvious, right? Authority.
Definitely. Trainees tend to listen to their boss or a top performer. It helps ensure everyone's pulling in the same direction. The downside, managers are busy. They might not have time, or honestly, they might not be great teachers.
Okay, option 2.
Dedicated staff trainers. These are people whose whole job is training. They're focused, they can develop great materials, and it's often cheaper than pulling a high-level sales exec out of the field.
But a disadvantage.
They might lack that street cred, that perceived authority that a line manager has. Sometimes reps think, what do they know about my territory?
And the third option, which you said is pretty common.
Outside specialists. Over 70% of companies use them for some training. The key here, though, is you have to give them crystal clear objectives and make sure they customize. Otherwise, you're just paying for generic, off-the-shelf advice that might not fit your specific needs.
Got it. Now, what about timing? There's this idea of delayed training, holding off on the big investment until a new recruit proves themselves. Seems risky.
It's a definite trade-off. Some companies, especially in industries like insurance with high early turnover, do this. They let recruits try selling for a bit, see who sticks, then invest in the serious training. It weeds out people quickly.
But the risk.
You might lose potentially great reps who just needed a bit more upfront guidance to get going. They wash out before they get the support they needed. So you save money on the failures, but you might lose some future stars.
Location is another big one. Centralized sales school versus decentralized or online.
The trend is heavily towards decentralized and digital. Central training schools are expensive. The travel, the facility, the dedicated staff.
Yeah, takes reps out of the field too.
Yeah, exactly. Decentralized training, like in field offices or web-based, is usually much cheaper, and reps can often keep working, keep earning while they learn.
And web-based is huge now.
Massive. The savings are significant, often 50% less time out of the field, 30 to 60% cost reduction. Plus, it allows for self-pacing, customization. But, for really complex skills like negotiation or deep relationship building, you usually need to blend it. Online for knowledge, face-to-face for practice, and nuance.
Okay, let's talk content. What actually goes into the training? It seems broader than just product features.
Oh, much broader. You have to start with attitude and mindset, debunking those common myths.
Like what?
Like the idea that salespeople are born, not made. Or the classic one, good salespeople are great talkers.
No.
Good salespeople are usually exceptional listeners. You have to tackle those beliefs head on.
Beyond mindset.
Then there's operational knowledge.
Yeah.
Company mission, goals, policies, procedures. And crucially, reps need to understand the why behind the policies, not just the rule itself, especially when they have to explain it to a customer.
And knowing the customer's world.
Absolutely vital. They need to understand the customer's business, their challenges, who the competition is. They also need basic business acumen, finance, distribution. Remember, they're often acting as consultants and need to think about the profitability of their territory.
You also mentioned specific skills training around legal risks. That sounds critical.
It's hugely important. Defensive training, really. Reps need to know what they can and cannot say to avoid product liability issues. No exaggerated claims, stick to the facts. And they absolutely must understand things like the Robinson-Patman Act on price discrimination.
Explain that one quickly.
Basically, you can't offer different prices or discounts to similar customers if it harms competition, unless there's a clear cost justification. A rep offering a buddy deal under the table could land the company in serious legal trouble. Training prevents that.
And internationally, the risks are different but just as high. That story about the Japanese business card.
Right. A simple mistake, like scribbling notes on someone's business card in Japan, can be seen as incredibly disrespectful. It seems small, but that cultural blunder cost a company a huge deal. Cross-cultural training isn't a nice-to-have. It's essential risk management for global business.
Okay, so the content is broad and deep. How do we actually teach this effectively? You mentioned the quality of teaching often trumps the specific syllabus.
Engagement is the name of the game. Lectures have their place, but you need more. Participative methods are key. Discussions may be sparked by case studies or panel debates.
Like that Motorola example.
Yeah, The Zodiac board game? Brilliant idea. It teaches reps who aren't finance people how their everyday actions impact the company's bottom line.
Hmm.
It makes abstract financial concepts tangible and fun.
And for just raw product knowledge, immersion seems powerful.
Totally. Like Whirlpool.
Hmm.
Making new reps actually live in a house, kitted out with all their appliances for 2 months. You can't beat that for understanding how the products work in real life. Way better than any brochure.
Role-playing still holds up too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you videotape it and critique it constructively. Companies like DuPont use it strategically, like practicing a major sales call right before it happens. Talk about relevant practice.
But the most common method is still.
Good old on-the-job training or mentoring. Something like 94% of companies use it. Pairing a new hire with a seasoned veteran, it's informal, practical. Companies like Boeing, IBM rely heavily on it.
And even utilizing downtime, like driving.
Yeah, the driving time utility idea. Using audio programs used to be cassettes, now digital audio, so reps can learn about time management or new techniques while driving between appointments, making use of every minute.
Okay, we've assessed the need, designed the program, and the content delivery. Now, the crucial phase is where, you argue, most companies drop the ball and waste that $54 billion. Phase 3, reinforcement.
This is where it all tends to fall apart.
Yeah.
If you don't reinforce the training, the investment just evaporates. Get this. Xerox, which has, legendary sales training, did a study. They found an 87% loss of skills just 30 days after training ended, if there was no follow-up reinforcement.
87% lost in a month. That's terrifying. After spending all that money, almost 90% of it is gone if you don't follow up.
Terrifying is the right word. It means less than 15% of what you taught actually sticks long-term without reinforcement. So how do you stop that?
What works?
The most common and arguably most effective method is ongoing coaching from the sales manager. Riding along on actual calls, providing feedback, reinforcing the techniques learned in training.
But managers are busy hitting targets.
And that's the challenge. Other methods exist for refresher courses, like Boston Scientific does, or web-based follow-up modules. But the core issue is often motivating and training the managers themselves to prioritize coaching. It often gets pushed aside by the immediate pressure to close deals.
Which leads perfectly into the final phase, phase 4, evaluation. If we can't measure change, how do we justify the spend or improve things next time?
Exactly. Evaluation closes the loop. You absolutely have to measure the outcomes against the original objectives. And there are 4 levels to look at.
Okay, level 1.
Level 1 is simply reactions. Did the trainees like it? Did they find it worthwhile? It's subjective, a happy sheet, but it's a starting point.
Level 2.
Learning. Did they actually absorb the information? This is where you use tests, quizzes. Did they learn the product specs, the policies?
Okay, important, but maybe not the bottom line. Level 3.
Behavior. This is critical. Did the training actually change how the salesperson behaves on the job? Are they using the new prospecting technique? Are they managing their time better? This usually requires observation by managers, or maybe even feedback from customers.
And the final, ultimate test. Level 4.
Results. Did the training actually impact the bottom line? This is the hardest to measure, but the most important. Are sales up? Is customer retention better? Is territory profitability improving? Do the benefits outweigh the costs? If you're not evaluating across all 4 levels, you're flying blind. You can't prove the ROI, and you can't figure out how to make the training better next time.
So this whole 4-phase process, assessment, design, reinforcement, evaluation, it gives managers a clear roadmap. We've established training isn't magic, right? It can't fix a bad hiring choice or a flawed company strategy.
No, it's not a panacea.
But when you do it right, following these steps, it really can systematically improve performance and justify that investment.
Absolutely. The system works. But, there's often that one person who can derail even the best system. The superstar who thinks the rules don't apply.
Ah, yes. We talked about focusing training on the middle 60% for the best ROI, but that leaves managers scratching their heads about the outliers, specifically the lone wolf superstar.
Right. That top 20% performer who consistently blows away targets, wins all the awards, but hates mandatory training. They think any time spent in a classroom is time they're not selling and making money. They actively resist.
So here's the provocative thought we want to leave you, the listener, with today, especially if you're in sales leadership. How do you handle that lone wolf? How would you design maybe a customized learning path? Or maybe more realistically, what kind of incentives could you offer to get that high achiever engaged in continuous learning and maybe even sharing their knowledge when their own success seems to tell them they don't need it?
How do you convince someone who's already winning that they still need to learn and adapt?
Something to think about. We'll be back next time for another deep dive.